Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today we are going to have a look at the Beechcraft Duke from Black Square Simulations. Now the Duke is the standard Duke as it was originally delivered in 1974 from the factory, and this is not the Grand Duke and not the Turbine Duke, so this is the standard one that comes with the Piston Duke package from Black Square. Now this airplane is quite a lot of fun to fly, and in order to make it even more fun, we actually have it in pretty much an original 1974 configuration over here, with a little bit of 1980s equipment installed. So you can see what our plane looks like from the inside over here, and man, just look at those seats. That really brings us back into the era, doesn't it? So, in terms of the avionics today, we are just going to use the standard avionics over here, and we will primarily use VORs and the KNS-81 RNAV computer to navigate and route. We are currently parked in Milano Linate Airport, and from here we're going to fly up to Friedrichshafen, which is a beautiful airport on Lake Constance, and has just gotten its own custom scenery from Microsoft, together with City Update 6 Southern Germany. Now, not all the best kind of weather over here, but nonetheless I am positive we are going to have a lovely flight today. Okay, so, in order to avoid the airplane completely filling up with rain, let's go inside and start our pre-flight procedures. So we're going to start right over here on the electronic flight bag, and just a quick thing that I want to mention over here. You can see that we've got the shortcut for the baggage door, the key located on the front of the instrument panels here while the door is open. If we just put that away, you can see that that is a shortcut to close the cargo door. Likewise, we can go to the back end, close the cabin door, or we can just do it over here. Now, for once, I'm going to do it over here, and that is our cabin door closed. Apart from that, you can see that we've got two people sitting in the back, a little bit of luggage in the front and in the back. CG is in limits, and we are well below our maximum takeoff weight today, so that we hopefully get a little bit of climb performance out of this airplane. Okay, so let's remove the chocks, covers, and then we can go ahead and stow our tablet, and we can start with our procedures. So pre-flight inspection complete, control locks, we can remove them over here. Then seats and seatbelts are secured, cabin door latched, nose baggage door latched, park and brake is set. Okay, our landing gear switch is down, electrical switches are all off, looking good. And then engine and avionics switch is off, oxygen pressure between 1550 and 1850. Circuit breakers are all in, as you can see, and the intercooler air is off. Cabin pressure shutoff is open. Okay, alternate static air normal. CO detector, we are going to run the test over here if that works. Yes, it does. Okay, CO detector is tested. Environmental mode off, flaps up. Prop sync off, throttles closed, propellers maximum, and mixture full rich, trims centered, and fuel selectors are both on. Okay, that's the pre-flight checklist complete. Let's go ahead with our engine startup procedure then, and then we're going to have a look at our avionics setup. Okay, so the beacon light can come on, battery on, bus voltage is 23 minimum, and indeed we are showing a little bit more than that. Okay, then we can go on to the fuel quantities, and they are just below 75%. That is sufficient for our flight. Okay, cowl flaps, make sure that they are fully open. And now they are for sure. Okay, so annunciator test. Looking good. We only see expected annunciations. Then we do the fuel pump test. Also looking good. Alright then, so let's go ahead with our engine start then. We got the choice between several different startup checklists. Engine start cold, engine start hot, engine start flooded, and so on. So we gotta pick one today. Now, we definitely don't have the best weather here, so let's go for the cold one. I'm just joking, of course. The checklists depend on whether the engine is hot or cold, not the outside air temperature, so always be sure to take that into account. Okay, so our engines are cold today though, so let's go for the engine start cold checklist. And we start with a pre-oiler, running that for 30 seconds up here. So that is going to increase the oil pressure a little bit, and it is going to distribute some of the oil in the engine. Let's tap that glass a bit so that we can actually see that needle moving here. Okay. Getting there. And we've got 30 seconds. Yeah, that oil pressure is okay. It's above 15, that's what we need. Okay, so mixture full rich, propeller high RPM, throttle full open, boost pump can come on. We're looking at 5 to 8 seconds, so we'll start with 5. Fuel pressure is more than 50 gallons per hour. That's looking good. Right fuel pump off again. Throttle open about half an inch, something like that. Okay, let's give it a go. Here we go. Engine is started. Oil pressure is observed over there, and we bring the engine up to between 1000 and 1200 RPMs. Okay, so right fuel pressure annunciator is out, generator coming online, and more than 0 amps. Okay, bus voltage 28, looking good. Engine instruments are checked, mostly the oil pressure is important over here. Okay, excellent. So then we can go ahead and start the left engine. So we start with the oil cooler on the left hand side over here. That is going to take a little bit. We're looking for more than 15 psi. So each of those steps here is 10 psi. So you can see we're at 10 already now. After 13 seconds, we're looking for 30 seconds. 30. Sometimes it just helps to knock that instrument glass a little bit. Look at that, that is 15 already. Okay, perfect. So we'll just let it run up to 30 seconds here. Here we go. Almost 20 psi, perfect. Okay, so then left mixture is full forward, left prop is on high RPMs, left power lever goes full forward. Then we can start the fuel booster pump until 50 and a bit seconds. More than 50 gallons is observed, and that's looking good. Okay, so throttle idle and open about half an inch. That's looking good. Let's give it a go. Left engine is running. Left oil pressure is observed over here, and left propeller to 1000 RPMs or more. Looking good. Alright, excellent. So left generator can come online. The generator load is now distributed equally at around about 0. That is okay. And the pre-oiler is off. Battery temperatures are checked to be below 140 Fahrenheit. And that is good. Then we can continue with our after start procedures. So the boost pumps are off, lights as required. Well, it is a little bit dark in here, so I'm actually going to turn the panel lights on. Apart from that, weather radar is in the off position. Then avionics, main inverter on, avionics master on. So inverter warning is out, basically all warnings are out, and it's not just the bulbs that went out, but actually the warnings themselves. Very good. Okay, then we can lean a little bit for our taxi operation, and with that we have already completed our startup. So transponder, weather radar, frequencies, we are gonna go for 121.5 and 122.8. We want to make sure that we listen to both of them. And that's basically it. So Squawk 2000 as we are flying IFR, and that's it. Okay, so I am just going to do a basic setup here before we start our taxi. So let's take a quick moment to have a look into the Navigraph charts, which we got right over here. So that's our route of flight from Milano Linate up north to Friedrichshafen, about 180 nautical miles, so it should be just shy of an hour flight time. Now let's have a look at our departure procedure. Or let's start with the weather real quick here. It's a wind of 3603, light rain, scattered clouds, and 13 degrees, 1005. So 1005 is already a good point. Let's go ahead and set that. Set left and set right. So now we're looking at 300 and a few feet. Let's check that against the chart. And looking at that, 350 feet elevation, so we're looking very good. So, Throttle 8 Charlie departure by ATC, compulsory for non-ANAF aircraft. Now, we do have an ANAF computer, but it is not exactly as precise as nowadays SIDs do require. For that reason, we are fine to use this particular SID. Now, let's have a look at what we have over here. We are departing Linate VOR on 12.25. Let's go ahead and select that. So VOR 1, 12.25 going in here. And initially on a 353 course. So we've got 353 selected. Alright, and thereafter we're going to fly into Trezzo 17.25. Goes on a standby here, and we'll take that active on number 2. So 1725 into there. From there on, we're going to join the PEPAC 1 Charlie transition. Actually, no, we are not. We're going to join the PEPAC 1 Bravo, and for that we need the correct chart first of all. Bad preparation here. So PEPAC 1 Bravo, down here it is. That's from Trezzo to Bergamo, 1105. We can already select that on the standby up here, and that's it for now. Okay, so thereafter we'll have to navigate ANAF towards PEPAC. And well, we can help ourselves a little bit here with the KNS-81 ANAF computer. So let's go ahead and have a look at that particular piece of equipment. So the KNS-81 is the unit that we find located down here. You can see that you can select several different waypoints in this system, up to 10 of them, and you can select the frequency, a radial, and the distance. And you can see I pre-selected that already: 113.7, 003, and 20 nautical miles. And if we do take a quick look at SkyVector now, then you will see in a few moments as to why I made that selection. So here's SkyVector, and if you take a look at this, over here I marked Saronno VOR, and then I can get my frequency 13.7, radial 003, 20 nautical miles, and that basically defines the waypoint PEPAC that you can see over here. And since PEPAC is an ANAF waypoint, using the KNS-81 like this, Saronno VOR, radial 3, distance 20 miles, we can define PEPAC over here. Now when we switch to ANAF operations up here and select ANAF over here as well, then we can now basically navigate to PEPAC through the KNS-81 as if PEPAC was just a standard VOR. And like that we can navigate pretty much anywhere in the world. And that is what we're going to use for our en route navigation. Now this is lovely 1980s technology, isn't it? Okay, so that's all selected, and finally if you are looking for the DME to your ANAF station, you can do that on the DME up here as well. However, for our departure we need DME number 1, so that is what we are going to use. Okay, and that's enough setup pretty much completed. So that's how we are going to navigate. Let's quickly go back into the Navigraph charts and have a look at where we are. We are standing here on the west apron, and we are going to taxi out for a runway 35 departure. That means taxiing out via November all the way on the top, then via Bravo onto Tango, and then Tango all the way south. A little bit long taxi, but don't worry about that, we will do it quickly. Now, in order to have the charts readily available, I am just going to keep our charts open down here in the bottom, since unfortunately we do currently not have any... well, we do currently not have any ability to display charts inside our aircraft. But this is basically it. Let's go ahead now, and we are going to turn on the taxi light, reset that, and release our parking brake, and off we go. So we're currently facing 060, so we're parking over here. That means we gotta taxi out to the left. Now Bergamo is a little bit of an itchy airport here in regards to those taxi procedures, because they did have that accident where a Cessna Citation taxied off the general aviation apron in the wrong direction and then accidentally entered the runway while an MD-80 was taking off and went right into it, leading to a fatal accident. Very interesting episode on Air Crash Investigation available on that particular accident. Can really recommend you to watch it if you're interested. And that happened right over here at Bergamo, departing from the general aviation apron. So we got to be a little bit careful, and we're going to turn on the transponder as well, so that air traffic control can see us on their ground radars. Okay then, so on the way we are going to take the northbound taxiway, and we can verify that on the compass down here. Also check this, about 350 heading right now compared to the standby 350 heading. As we're about to enter a right hand turn, we cross check our turn coordinator, we cross check that our gyros are rotating correctly to verify that our flight instruments are working. And now we just gotta take the long way around Linate Airport. Sometimes I just wonder why they didn't just build another taxiway over here, but I suppose that's just the way they did these things, and well, they probably just didn't get permission to build another taxiway or didn't want to invest the money. Either would not surprise me, let's call it that way. Let's just call it that way. I do have to say I'm really excited for this flight, because, well, how often do you actually use those old school ANOF systems? They do say that navigating conventional IFR without any GPS on board is probably the most difficult form of navigation in aviation, and, well, let's see about it. I'm sure this one is going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. Okay, reaching November 5, as we can see on the taxiway signs over here. So if we do a quick look into the Navigraph charts, November 5 is up here. So we are about to enter the apron, and then it's going to be the second taxiway to the right, southbound on Bravo. That is where we are going. So approaching the apron over here, let's slow down a little bit. About to do our first left-hand turn on the taxi. Again, we are going to verify that the gauges are indicating correctly. Okay, this is Alpha, we don't want to take that. We want to take the left-hand turn. And our gauges are showing correctly. Okay, then right on to Bravo. Should be written somewhere on here. Yes, there it is. Bravo to the right. Okay, looking good. I'm a little bit on the fast side, I am aware of that, but let's not, as we say in Germany, let's not be päpstlicher than the Papst. Roughly translates into let's not be popier than the Pope. Since we're flying in Italy, well. Okay, so now for our taxi routing, we are now going southbound on Bravo. It's going to be slight right-hand turn where Bravo converges into Tango, and then we just follow Tango all the way down southbound. Looks good to me. So this is the parallel taxiway that we did not want to enter, and over here Bravo goes into Tango. Yep, that's Tango over here, as we can see on the airport signs. Okay, so we're going to follow this one southbound. While we're taxiing, keeping an eye on the engine instruments over here, making sure that none of those is indicating us any nonsense. Especially making sure that we don't overheat the engines, but everything looks to be good to me. Okay then, so we're on Tango, we're going southbound, that cross-checks with the directional gyro. So from here on, it's just going to be paralleling the runway. There's another Tango sign, looking good. And we can taxi to the full length. Looks like there is no traffic over here today, so these things are going to be simple. Okay, so then let's talk about our takeoff briefing again, now that we have a little bit of time going in a straight line. Don't need that taxi chart anymore, so we'll just have a look into our SID right now. Okay, so for the departure we climb straight ahead to 850 feet, but not before Lima India November VOR. That's the one we have turned active on number 1. And then it's going to be a right-hand turn, join the radial 003 outbound until 4 DME. Maximum 220 in the turn is not going to be a problem for us. And then intercept the radial 267 inbound to Trezzo VOR. Now we gotta cross Trezzo. There is a little note here, climb in holding if at level or lower than flight level 085. So we'll try to cross Trezzo above flight level 85. Then we can look into our transition, which we've got over here. That's Trezzo outbound until 7 DME, which is Olpur. And then we're gonna make a left-hand turn, join the radial 303 outbound from Bergamo VOR 1105. We've got a couple of crossing restrictions over here that we got to make sure that we are going to meet because of the rising terrain of the Alps, and eventually that is going to lead us towards Pepak. Now at some point after Oswich over here we are probably going to switch over to the KNS 81 ANAF navigation, and that should basically solve our navigational topic. Okay, so we can switch over to our SID over here. And just about in time for reaching the holding point of runway 35. So our SID is basically reviewed already. We're going to do a little bit of a takeoff briefing in a few moments once we're done with all the procedures. So we'll just turn it off track a little bit so that when we do the run-up we are not going to blow anything onto any airplane directly behind us. And then here we are at the runway, so let's go ahead and start preparing our aircraft for the engine run-up. Okay, so park and brake set, annunciators tested and checked. The reason we test those is because we want to be sure that all the bulbs are working. We really don't want to miss any warning just because of a broken light bulb. Okay then, making sure that our fuel system is functioning, so we turn on the thrust feed and we're going to turn on the fuel boost pumps. Then mixture full rich, props full forward, and then we can throttle up for 2000 RPMs. Tiny throttle inputs here. That's the turbocharger you hear there. Okay, so 2000 RPMs, we're going to exercise the throttle to get a 300 RPM drop. Like that. And on the right-hand engine as well. Like that. Okay then, so both engines at 2000 RPMs. Probably a little bit more power on the right-hand engine. Here we go, that's both engines at 2000 RPMs. Then let's go ahead and check the magnetos. Right magneto on engine number 1. Looking for no more than 150 RPM drop. And that's looking good. Now let's do the same on the right engine. Okay, that is looking good. So then we turn off the left generator, make sure that all the load is carried by the right. Left generator on again, right generator off, and the same thing. Okay, then let's throttle up to 2500 RPMs for our pressurization check. Looking good, so the cockpit window is closed, otherwise the entire check becomes kind of worthless. So, cabin pressure 1000 feet below our elevation, and then we can run the test, and we can see the cabin is descending, so we're going to go back to 0. Okay, so now we can set our first cleared altitude. That is going to be 24,000 feet, which is going to be our cruising altitude as well. We'll just set slightly more in order to avoid cabin pressure warning. Okay, so cabin pressurization mode selected back to normal. Now let's bring the throttles back to 1500 RPMs. Okay, here we go, that is looking good. So, we're going to start testing the propeller heat and press the button, observe the prop amps and the generator load. Looking good, and propeller heat back off again. Now the same for the windshield heat. See the load over here and the voltage over here. Okay, now have a close look at the generator load indicators as we are going to test the rest of the de-icing system. And turning on every single one of them, we can see a slight increase in the generator load. Okay, now let's just have a look at the de-icing pressure down here. So we're going to start with the manual cycle. And we want to see it rising to 15 to 20 psi. We got 15 over here, and now let's do surface de-ice, one cycle. And that's again going to 15. Or between 15 and 20, I should say. Looking good. Okay, so all of that is checked. With that, we know our anti-ice system is working properly. Now, next up, we're going to test the autopilot system. So, first of all, throttles back to between 1000 and 1200. That's looking good, so let's test the autopilot now. We're going to engage it in heading mode. And first of all, we need to turn on the pitch trim. Okay, check the pitch trim is working electrically. Looking good, trim set for takeoff. Okay, so now autopilot on, and it is on heading mode, so it tries to follow the heading duck with a left turn. Looking good, now we do the same with a right hand turn. Make sure that the yoke is going to follow. Which it does. Looking good. Okay, a single click disengages the autopilot. The second one would remove the flight director, which we didn't activate in first place. Alright then, flaps. Approach position now and down into the landing position. Can observe the flaps are indeed driving. Looking good. And back to the approach position, which is what we're going to use for takeoff. So then, the window is closed. The cabin door warnings are out. So, initial climb 5000 set, takeoff heading is set, panel lights are set as needed, and the parking brake will come next. So let's just do a very quick briefing for our takeoff here. Rotation is going to be at 85 knots, initial climb at 112, and like that we continue straight out. We make sure that we overfly Linate VOR, thereafter join the radial outbound, which should provide us with a good clear of obstacles climb. Now, then, what are we gonna do next? Let's first of all bring up those charts again for you guys. Here they are. So, intercept radial 3 outbound until 4 DME above 2800. Shouldn't be much of a problem, but just to be sure. And then a right hand turn inward thread, so make sure to cross that above flight level 85. Transition altitude is located in 6000, as we can see. And the MSA is 4200. In case of engine failure just after takeoff, we climb straight at, and when we're at a safe altitude of a minimum 1000 AGL, gonna make a left-hand turn or right-hand turn depending on which engine is out. We can turn above both, it's not a problem, but nonetheless, just to ease up our navigation into the downwind, climbing 3000, and then we're going to return for an ILS approach onto runway 35. Okay, and that is our basic setup. Do you have any questions about that? No. Awesome. Okay, then let's go ahead and check. Mixture is full rich. Props are full forward now. Cabin temperature mode can or no, is gonna stay off for the takeoff. We're gonna turn that on afterwards. So, quick test of the weather radar system. Make sure that that thing works. And that is looking good. So, weather radar can come on. We're going to turn it up about 5 units. Transponder can come on. Let's also set a nice IFR squawk here. 3410, looking good. And that's it. Alright. And strobe light coming on, landing lights coming on, park and brake off, and pitot and stall heaters coming on. Okay. With that, we are ready to go. Elapsed timer is prepared. Also use the elapsed timer down on the ADF over here. It's a little bit easier inside. So runway 35 is identified and confirmed. And with that, we are ready to go. So pumps on, everything's set, cowl flaps open, and everything is set indeed. Okay, cool. So with that, we are good to go. Take off. Brakes released. Set power. Power set. Speed alive. 85 knots. Rotate. So, positive climb. Gear up. Okay, past 112 knots. So, flaps up. Set climb power. 35.5, 2750. Here we go, and we overfly the VOR, so joining radio 003 outbound now. So, first restriction is 2000 feet by 2.5 miles. That should not be much of a problem. And here comes the radial already. So, looking good. Then let's bring on the autopilot. Flight director. Nav, attitude hold, autopilot. In weather conditions like this, it's certainly good to have something like the AP available to us. Okay, so we already passed the 2800 restriction that we've got at 40 ME outbound. Next up is going to be 087 inbound to Trezzo. So 087, then we can just pre-select a heading of 060 in order to intercept. Can pitch up a little bit more to help our rate of climb a little bit. Okay, cabin temperature mode is going into auto down here. Weather radar, well, not a lot we can do. It's just not very good weather. Okay, let's continue our climb. We're going all the way up to 24,000 and that's set. So, 4 miles. Heading. Switch over to Trezzo and then we're looking for 087. Which is pretty much here. Okay, I'll let it turn onto 060 heading in order to intercept. Here we go, and nav is armed. Okay, so let's reach the en route climb checklist. Mixture is going to be leaned for maximum power. Propellers 2750, we have that. Manifold pressure 35.5. Cowl flaps open. Boost pumps off. Prop sync on. Cabin pressure monitor. And indeed the differential is building, the cabin is slowly climbing. Well, call it slowly, yeah. Can actually make that a little bit less. That makes it more comfortable for our ears. Okay, cabin temperature and mode as designed, enter performance monitor, and that's the en route climb checklist complete. Okay, so we got an overflight thread, so in flight level 85. We've passed the transition altitude, so set standard. Set once and twice. Standard cross-check passing flight level 74. Now. Checked. Okay, Trezzo level 85 should not be a problem. Still got 5.8 miles to run until there. So then we can already start looking into our next chart, which is going to be the PayPack 1 Bravo. And that's right over here, so 039 outbound until 7 DME. So let's pre-select heading 039, so that by the time it overflies the station, it's automatically going to revert from nav mode into heading mode, and therefore start the left-hand turn. Okay, we have flight level 85, so that restriction is met. Quick look down here. Temperatures are already going into the negatives, so let's just go ahead and turn on that propeller heat and the fuel vent heat as well. We're going to wait with the windshield anti-ice until we actually see... Okay, here we go, it is icing. Good. That's fine, windshield anti-ice on. Or windshield heat, I should call it. So, keep in mind, the DME we see over here is the direct distance to the station, so our altitude also counts for that. 6,000 feet equals 1 nautical mile, so we're basically looking at about 2 nautical miles in order to get overhead, so we will be in the cone of silence in a few moments. So be prepared to lose the signal and start the left-hand turn onto 039. Should come any moment now. That's 2 miles. You can see how the indication becomes a little bit slippery here. Very nicely done by Black Square, by the way. Okay, that's good enough for me. Heading select. And now we're going to proceed on 039 radial outbound. And we're just going to slightly turn this around so that we now have Bergamo available on nav 2 already. Okay, the radial will slowly come in a few moments. We'll just gain a little bit of distance from the station here. So, what's our wing doing? It's clean. Lovely effect of the strobe light reflecting in the cloud, by the way, isn't it? That is another feature of the Black Square Dukes. That looks really cool if you ask me. Okay, gonna turn a couple degrees to the right in order to be sure to make that intercept properly. And next up at Olpur, which is 7 DME outbound, you can see that on the chart right over here. We're going to make a left-hand turn to intercept the radial 303. Okay, looks like we're gonna make that right-hand turn a bit more aggressive. Also pitch down a little bit. Or we just leave it to the autopilot. Just turn it to nav mode. Now it's automatically going to intercept. But this is going to be rather harsh now. For that reason, sometimes it's just easier to use heading mode. Yeah, you see now it's really harshly going to the right. Not so good for passenger comfort. But it is intercepting. So, reaching 4 miles over here. We have already met all the altitude restriction that we have on the charts, up to flight level 140. And we can be sure at this point that we're going to meet the restriction at level 150 over PPAC as well. Okay, next up we're gonna make the left turn, intercept 303 radial outbound Bergamo. So let's pre-select 330 as a course to intercept that. And we can also pre-select Bergamo on 111.05 on the nav 1 standby. So that in 1.5 miles, when we make the turn, all we need to do is to switch this over. And just to be sure, that is Bergamo VOR down here on the nav 2. That's giving us a good indication, and the indication we get up here is also correct. So the VOR is already positively identified. Okay, reaching 7 DME. Heading. Switch over. And 303 going into here. So with that we are set up to do the intercept. Quick check through all the rest of our systems. Cabin pressurization is building normally. Cabin temperature is 18 degrees now, 17, slightly falling. We might just have to well, we might have to play with that in a few moments if it does get too cold. But first let's focus on navigation over here, since we are flying pretty close to the mountains of the Alps, as you can see on the chart right over here. So let's see what's that on the terrain scale. 10,000. So the hills go all the way to 10,000. Well, we're in 18 already, so it shouldn't be that much of an issue, but nonetheless. Okay, waiting for the radial to become alive. Can slowly see it over here, so we're about, 10 degrees offset now, so it starts running in. That's looking good. Let's just wait until it is a little bit closer, so that by the time I go back to nav mode, the autopilot actually just does a left-hand turn and not tries to intercept anything with a right-hand turn. Okay, I think this is close enough now. Nav. By the way, you do have shortcuts for those available up here on the FMA, but personally I just prefer to use the original switches. So if you're wondering why I'm constantly looking down to make those inputs, there is your reason. Okay, established on the radial outbound. So we got to cross 8 DME above level 120. We easily have that. Then 11 DME level 130. Oswich, which is 15 DME. You can see that just below the route on the chart down here. 15 DME. Easy going. Our rate of climb is looking good. The speed is constant at 120. That's also good. And looking at the temperatures over here, we can already think about closing our cowl flaps. Let's just go ahead and do that. Cowl flaps are going closed. They should be fully closed now. We'll keep an eye on the cylinder at temperature, making sure that it doesn't overheat, but overall I think we are going to be fine. Okay then, weather radar, let's put that down a bit to something like 1 degree up. 1.2 is fine with me as well. Range up a bit. Yeah, we'll make a right-hand turn in a couple of miles anyway to intercept our airway out of PPAC, so nothing to worry about here. Okay, what we can do next already though is preparing to intercept our airway. We can start setting up our ANAV computer. I already told you that I have pre-selected our numbers, but if we just cross-check that it's actually working correctly, just switch it up to ANAV over here, And, well, it shows us slightly right off track. That's good enough for me. A little bit inaccuracy is always in there. And if we switch it down to RNAV over here, it tells us 20 miles to run until Pepak. If we now go back to number 1, it's 12 miles outbound. And finally, if we compare all of those with our navigation chart, you can see 32 DME from Bergamo is where Pepak is located. In other words, our RNAV computer indications are okay. Okay, let's pitch it down a little bit. And, well, then back to nav 1 up here. Now, with the Dukes, Black Square have finally enabled the autopilot to be able to intercept the area navigation. That is a new feature with the Dukes, and something that I'm really happy about, because it means that we can finally do proper navigation on the airway. Okay, we got 1,000 to go. Cabin altitude is looking good. The differential pressure is nearing the maximum, but you can see that this is already set correctly. Cabin temperature is 12 degrees now. We are going to have to deal with that in a few moments, but I just want to bring it up to cruising level, and then we can slowly go ahead and have a look at proper navigational proper procedures to warm the airplane up. Okay, about to reach our cruising altitude. Working ahead a little bit, we can have a look into our performance charts, which we can find in the product manual. I'm not going to open them over here because I did get a little bit of feedback on some earlier videos that you guys are not too happy about seeing me constantly opening stuff on the screen. So for that reason, I am just going to keep it like this. Okay, so then we're going to cruise at 75% power, and at flight level 240 that equals 34.1 inches and 2,750 RPMs on the engine. If we cruise a little bit slower, so at just 65%, that's going to be about 15 knots less, then we can reduce our engine RPMs, which might be nice for a little bit of passenger comfort. But today, we don't care passenger comfort, everyone is wearing their headsets. So for that reason, we are simply going to use the 75% power table. So looking at 34.1 inches. So something like this, 2,750 RPMs. Well, just reducing our RPMs a tiny bit here. Here we go, 2,750 is set. And the fuel flow should be 133 gallons per hour per engine with that. So let's just go ahead and start leaning it down to exactly that number. So roughly here. That is looking good to me. Okay, perfect. So with that, we should achieve 234 knots of true airspeed. Let's go ahead and cross-check that. So looking down here, we've got minus 35 degrees centigrade. So if we just move this up, take flight level 240 at 240 flight level inside, on the outside of minus 35 degrees. There we go, 240 at minus 35, true airspeed 250 knots. That's quite good, so we're even a little bit faster than what we are supposed to be at this point. Well, never gonna complain about being a little bit faster. Now, what are we talking about? Few percent over here only, so not all that much of a problem. Okay, so we can prepare to intercept the airway now. In 2.5 miles we will have reached it. So as you can see, the track on the airway, if we do look down here, is going to be 351. So let's switch this over into the RNAV mode now. And then we're going to select 351 on here. But first let's go to heading. So 351, here it is. And now we switch that switch over here, over to RNAV. And with that, the autopilot is armed to... Sorry. With that, the autopilot is armed to intercept the RNAV track. It should be just about now. Let's make a right-hand turn, outbound on the heading initially, and then we're going to cross-check that as soon as we're a little bit outbound our waypoint. So, nav mode is on, and now the plane should perfectly intercept that. Okay, so in order to back up our navigation, I am going to tune 13.7 active on radio number 1, just so that we do get our indication down to the VOR down here, so that we have a little bit of a backup available. Now, thinking about what we are going to do next, let's have another look. Well, I would love to say on the en route chart, but unfortunately the JEPI charts don't really give us that information. But next up we need Rolsa and Zurich East VOR here. So Zurich East is going to be 110.05. If I'm not mistaken, let's just cross-check it here. Yes, 110.05. Let's go ahead and tune that into radio number 2. Like so. And then Rolsa can be defined by, what's that, 170 outbound, 18 miles. So as soon as we receive Zurich East, we can switch our RNAV computer over. But for now, gotta wait until the VOR needle over here starts moving, and then we are basically all set. So, and this is how we can navigate like this. Okay, so let's just go to the checklists once again, and we're going to do the cruise checklist over here. So that's cal flux as required, and well, temperatures are looking good, so just to make sure that they are completely closed, let's just okay, here we go. That's the cowl flaps closed, so boost pumps are off, pitot heat stays on anyway for the flight, but the rest of the de-icing can be turned off again in order to reduce our generator loading. So then, fuel imbalance maximum 25, well, we are absolutely fine the way we are right now. Okay, mixture is already leaned through the fuel flow gauge up here, and I'm happy with that. Cruise power is set, so next up is going to be cabin temperatures and modes, and this is something that is really worth talking about a little bit. You can see the cabin temperature is cooled down to 2 degrees centigrade. The reason for that is that the entire system just isn't able to keep up with our very, very cool outside air temperatures. So what we are going to do is to have a little look into some theory of our airplane. I'm just trying to find it in the manual to be able to show you directly and not talk any nonsense here. Okay, so cabin environmental controls from the product manual, of course. And before we get into that, we have just started receiving Zurich East VOR. So let's go ahead and pre-program our navigation. So first of all, let's go in a heading select. And now we go on to waypoint number 2 on the RNAV computer down here. So frequency, you can see that's highlighted down here, is going to be 110.05. Then go into data, now we can define the radial, and we said we're looking for radial 170. Exactly. Finally the distance, and we set the distance is gonna be 18 nautical miles, outbound Zurich East VOR. So that's 18 nautical miles. Okay, now we can see the waypoint is flashing up here. If we now click the use button, we have programmed our ANAV computer exactly for that. And you can see, here is our route. And here we go. So like that, can now press the nav button, and now it is going to intercept this particular route. You can see it is a very slight right-hand turn over here, so that tells you a little bit about some of the inaccuracies of such a navigation system. And anyway, what we do need to know, and what we do know, is we've got 14 minutes to run, and we're doing a ground speed of 247 knots with 56 nautical miles remaining until Rolsa. And after Rolsa, we are going to fly direct to Zurich East VOR according to the airway, so then we no longer need the ANAV computer. Okay, panel lights can come off as well. We can see everything we need. So now let's look at the now let's look a little bit at the cabin environmental controls of our aircraft. You can see I have already selected the cabin temperature mode to automatic heat. But as you can see, cabin is now close to freezing point, so it's basically not capable of generating sufficient heat in order to completely warm up the cabin. Now, cabin heating in the Piston Duke is supplied by a combustion heater that is located under the floor of the nose baggage compartment. So, basically, right here. And you can actually even see that, because over here you've got the air outlet of the combustion heater. Now, the combustion heater is gasoline powered and will consume fuel from the left tank at a rate of approximately half a gallon per hour when operating. Do note, since the combustion heater is gasoline powered, it is notoriously dangerous to operate. Should the combustion heater become compromised, it may result in poisonous carbon monoxide gas leaking into the cabin. Should carbon monoxide be detected in the cabin with an audible warning, the combustion heater should be considered a prime suspect and the use of cabin heating modes should be discontinued immediately. Now, since the Piston Duke has a service ceiling of 30,000 feet, outside air temperatures can be as low as minus 60 degrees centigrade in extreme latitudes. Now, this 80 degree temperature differential between the intake air and comfortable cabin temperature is more than the combustion heater can supply alone. For this reason, the Piston Duke has two pull handles, one for each engine, labeled pressurization, air temperature, pull to increase. Those are the two that we have right down here. Now, when these handles are pulled away from the panel, air heated by passing over the turbocharger intercoolers that is normally exhausted outbound is redirected into the cabin. Use of the intercooler air should be minimized as it is an additional source of potential carbon monoxide intrusion into the cabin. When operating at very low outside air temperatures, so minus 12 degrees centigrade or below, the intercooler air handles should be progressively pulled away from the panel to achieve the desired cabin temperature. Now let's go ahead and do just that. We are just going to pull them out completely to see what's going to happen. Yes, that much about the cabin telling us, or about the manual telling us to do that gradually. But to be fair, we started pulling them out a little bit later. The cabin is pretty cold already. Now we're going to see what is eventually going to happen. So, set and forget. We'll just let that run for a little bit and see what is going to happen. But you can already see our cabin starts warming up already. So that much about this. Now, the next thing we of course need to think about is when to actually start our descent. We don't have any fancy VNAV computers in this airplane, so a little bit of manual thought needs to go into this. Now, let's think about it. And in order to do that, we have to have a look at our approach charts. So, we'll fly towards Zurich East, and from there, we're going to join the Zurich East 5 Papa arrival. That leads us on towards Mokop over here, which is 25 miles outbound, and from there we have an ILS approach runway 24 available. If we just take a quick look into the weather condition, you can see Friedrichshafen is reporting 230 at 11, so pretty much down the nose for runway 24, Cavalcade 21 degrees, QNH 999. So If we have a look into this now, we can see that we basically commence our final turn 37.3 dm outbound from Zurich East. Now, as we do have a speed limit over here, that shall not be much a problem. And in order to make our navigation a little bit easier, if we simply take this 37.3 dm outbound at 4,000 feet, allowing us for a little level segment here towards the end of the turn, then we now have an idea of how we're going to fly the descent. So we're currently in 24,000 feet. We want to go down to 4,000, and that means we got to lose 20,000 feet of altitude. Now, going easy with the 3-to-1 rule, we know that in order to lose 20,000 feet, we multiply 20 times 3, gives us 60 nautical miles in order to do our descent. Now, if we want to make our mathematics even easier, then we can now say that we've got 40 miles outbound over here. So 20 miles prior to Zurich East, VOR, we're going to start our descent. Now, all of this is of course done with a little bit of rules of thumb over here, but in my opinion, that makes it pretty easy to do some mathematics. And flying an airplane like this is not about utmost precision, but it is likewise just about, you know, getting things right, getting where you want to go. Don't be mistaken, you will not be able to fly an airplane with a navigation system like this as precisely as you can with the modern day's FMS. Okay, so 20 miles inbound Zurich East, we need to start our descent, and you will remember that our waypoint Rolsa is located 18 miles away, so 2 miles prior Rolsa, so basically 2 miles prior this, so in 28 nautical miles we're going to start our descent towards Friedrichshafen. For the approach itself then, we can do a little bit of a setup. So Zurich East VOR is going to go active on both sides, and then we can already pre-select the ILS frequency here, 111.9 on radio number 1, and that's pretty much all we need. So we can also pre-select 111.9 in nav 2, and that's basically our nav setup completed. And that's about as easy as it gets. So you see, flying with 1970s, 1980s navigation can actually be pretty easy if you just invest a little bit of time into going into the manuals and figuring out how to do certain things. Easy going. Well, and since we now have a little bit of spare time available, we might as well just go ahead and have a little look through our cabin. Beautiful 1970s cabin over here. But if we do take a seat at the aft seat, you can see beautiful looks outside. Whoopsie. That's better. A little bit of turbulence here it seems, but that's not too surprising flying over mountains like this. By the way, I really have to say, this is a completely beautiful scenery, isn't it? Microsoft Flight Simulator just looks so amazing. So, emergency exit, that one is not modeled over here, so you can't just get rid of the emergency exit door, unfortunately. Well, and here we are. So a little look into some of the features that we have available on our electronic flight bag. So you are comfortable by now with the operations of the options and the payload pages, but what about we have a look into what actually happens in our engine or in our electrical system or the air conditioning system. So, few general things over here. The starter is currently disengaged, that logical. Now, down here we have the exhaust system, and down here is our turbocharger. Now this is an interesting metric to look at. So you not only have the standard air inlet for the engine, but down here there's the turbocharger. Now this graphic nicely shows you air from the exhaust is being pushed over a turbine down here, which basically is the turbine from the turbocharger, and that turbine then sucks in air from the ambient air over here. And for this reason we are able to gain manifold pressures that are greater than the standard atmospheric pressure at the flight level where we are flying. And in our case, you can see 34 inches. Now, ambient pressure on the ground is 29.92. So yes, the manifold pressure over here is in the same units as the altimeter setting that you get down here. And since the turbocharger pressurizes the air that we suck in from the outside, we basically get higher manifold pressures. Now that air is then being forwarded into the engine. Down here we've got the mixing unit that mixes fuel with the outside air, and that comes in through the distribution duct over here into the cylinders. Now this fuel mixture is then combined with the air that we get from the outside. These are our spark plugs, which are operating at the moment, and then you've got the exhaust over here, which then goes down into here. And that's about as easy as it gets. So, same thing on the right-hand engine. You can see the different system operation over here. Then we've got the electrical system. As you can see, everything is pretty much operating normally over here. That's a windshield anti-ice, our starter motors. Those are currently turned off, so therefore they are listed in red. And finally we've got the cabin air conditioning system, again providing some good insight into how exactly the system works over here. As you can see, our cabin temperatures are slowly getting back under control, 16 degrees already. And looking into it, we do get ram air from the engines over here through the intercooler system, which is used to pressurize the cabin. And then we can see we've got air coming from our heater over here into the system. Now, I would love to continue with a couple of explanations here, but we are already 2 nautical miles short of beginning our descent, so a few things that we just quickly need to cover. Next up, when we are going to switch back to raw data navigation, we're going to intercept the radial 170 inbound Zurich East VOR that we got up here. So let's just about go ahead and go on heading mode over here. I tune this back to VLOG, and you can see we're basically on the radial 170 inbound. So what we can do is quite easy. Hit the nav mode, and now we're navigating towards Zurich East VOR. Now we can go ahead and start our descent. So let's start down to 10,000, let's say. We can go into attitude mode over here, and then use the pitch wheel in order to pitch the airplane over. Ground speed 250 knots. So if we take that times 3, then times 5, then we know our rate of descent. So about 1,250, which is roughly what we've dialed in over here. However, as we're going to accelerate during our descent, we might have to adjust our vertical speed a little bit during the descent. Okay, so we are now on the way down. That means we need to turn our cabin altitude down as well to the field elevation that we have over at Friedrichshafen. I believe that is something about 1,000 and a bit. Let's go ahead and have a look at the approach chart to make sure. So field elevation 1340, and that is basically what we have dialed in over here. Cabin rate of descent can be a little bit nicer, so if we do something like this, 600 feet a minute, that should be completely fine. Okay, so you can see as our speed is increasing, our rate of descent is decreasing, so we might have to help it pitch over a little bit more. 270 knots now, so still about 1,300 feet a minute should be more than fine for our vertical navigation. Something like this is going to get us go down nicely. Okay, so going down nicely, and with that let's switch back over to the star chart. Here it is. So Zurich East outbound 068 is going to be what we're going to intercept. So a couple of miles prior to Zurich East VOR we will have to make the right hand turn then. Now, when I say a couple miles, then we just got to keep in mind how the altimetry system is working over here. So again, 1 nautical mile equals 6,000 feet. So 18,000 feet would be 3 nautical miles. In other words, even though this gauge reads currently 6 miles, we are roughly 3 nautical miles prior to the station. Now, we are going rather fast here at 250 knots, so just got to keep in mind that we start our right-hand turn onto the 067 radial a little bit earlier than actually over the station, in order not to overshoot too much. So what I'm going to do is we'll take something like a 040 heading. We are now roughly a mile prior to the station, so we'll go on a heading mode down here. And then having a look at the radial 068 is going to be the exact one. Let's go ahead and set that up. Okay, and you can see the radial is coming in already. I just want to refrain from using nav mode right now because we are rather close to the station. So I'd much rather keep it flying on heading mode, as that is going to make it a little bit easier to avoid all the left and right hand turns and avoid all the banking. Makes it a little bit nicer for our passengers. So pretty much over the station right now. Let's go ahead and turn exactly onto the heading. Like this, we'll just get a little bit of distance from the station, and then we are going to decide on re-engaging nav mode. Now, as you can see, until 18 DME outbound, we have a minimum altitude of 6,000. So let's go ahead and go down to 6,000 and set the QNH, which is 999. Okay, QNH 999 is set. And here we go. So, until 18 DME outbound, 6,000. Thereafter, we're going to continue down to 5,000 inbound to Mokop. So, cabin temperature is now 19 degrees. I'm already going to close the, or rather, partially close the air over here. A cabin descending at 500 feet a minute, currently at 7,500, so the cabin will need about 15 minutes to get down, roughly, and we still need more than that, so we are good to go. Okay, a little bit bumpy over here. I think we are far away enough from the station that we can consider re-engaging nav mode. So let's just use heading mode to more or less fly ourselves back onto the radial, and then we can turn the nav mode on again. Okay, in the meantime, descent checklist. Cabin altitude goal is set to the destination altitude. Cowl flaps closed, throttles. Well, we are just going to keep them over here. A little bit higher mixture, they say, so let's give them that. Okay, we're monitoring the engine performance. Cylinder head temperature needs to be kept at 125 degrees minimum, so that is down here, the end of the green arc, so we need to keep that one in mind. Ice protection as required, and that's the descent checklist complete. Okay, back on the radial, and nav mode is coming back on. So let's do a little bit of mathematics as to where we actually are and where we actually want to be in terms of monitoring our descent. Because I have a feeling that we are slowly getting a little bit high up here. So looking onto the chart, we can see that 37 DME outbound, we want to be in 4,000, actually in 5,000. We got a minimum en route altitude 5,000 here. So we want to have 5,000 by here. That means 10,000 feet going down. And well, we are running a little bit on the backside of that curve. So we have roughly half the distance now to the 37 DME point. And we still got 10,000 to go. That means we're roughly double as high as we want to be. So let's just increase our rate of descent here a bit. Let's go 2,000 feet a minute. Now we should be good to go. So as you can see, 4 minutes to cover those 18 miles. So another 18 miles is going to take another 4 minutes. In other words, going down at 2,000 feet a minute, maybe a little bit more, we should end up just about nicely on profile. So enriching the mixture again a little bit as we come down. I didn't mean to hit those throttles, sorry for that. Back to setting, here we go. Even though we might just have to start reducing our throttles a little bit. And we're entering some icing conditions here, so prop anti-ice, fuel vent and windshield heat coming on. It's a little bit turbulent here, so let's actually get our speed below the amber indication. Let's see, manifold down to 25, let's see what we're going to get with that. Looks like we need even less. Okay, let's go down to 15. And altitude-wise, we should be good enough that we can close the cabin air now. Okay, might have to increase our cabin rate of descent a little bit, since we have also increased our rate of descent. 800 feet a minute, so we need about 6 or 7 minutes until the cabin pressure is under control, so that should be more than fine. Okay, approaching 10,000. Lights are actually still on. Okay, fair enough. And we should be outside any icing conditions again, so windshield heat off, fuel vent off, and prop heat off. Okay, so 37.3 dB outbound Zurich East is where we are going to start our inbound turn. Speed is nicely coming back down again already. We can actually increase our power again. So it's an ILS approach runway 24. So we are going to use an intercept course of 210. Already pre-selecting the heading buck over there. Like this, looking good. Our weather radar is all clear already, so nothing to worry about. And well, we are full VMC, so nothing to worry about at all. Down there is our field. Seven miles to run in order to get down to 5,000. That means we can drastically reduce our rate of descent once again. 1,000 and a bit should be just about fine. And we go down to 5,000, of course. Okay, approach checklist, please. Seats and seatbelts secured, cabin altitude, differential pressure, and climb are set. Fuel selectors on. And then fuel imbalance, 25 gallons maximum. That is more than fine. Okay, recognition lights on. Pitot heat is on, windshield heat off, propeller heat off, cabin temperature and mode. I'm gonna set that off as well now. And just to be sure the air is completely stowed. Perfect. Okay, so cowl flaps as needed off. Mixture, we're going to set for maximum power, so that's gonna be mixture full forward. And flaps as needed, approach checklist complete. So 37.3. Set the power a little bit higher again. 1 nautical mile until we start our inbound turn. .3 miles. Here we go. So, heading. Making the inbound turn now. That means we can go down to 4,000. So attitude and put the pitch wheel down a bit. Descending at about 1,000 feet a minute is perfect. So ILS frequency going active. The course of the ILS is 238 degrees, and that is roughly set over there. Glide slope is looking good, we are just beneath the glide. I just don't want to make it too tight, so let's actually make that or a bit of a southerly heading over here. 190 likes until the localizer starts to come in. Okay, and 11.9 going active over here as well. Okay, localizer alive, approach mode armed, should start the inbound turn now. I'm probably overshooting a bit. Yes, I am. Surprise. Okay, and then we can start reducing our power. In order to slowly let the speed bleed off. Okay, I actually overshot quite a bit. Let's see how the plane re-intercepts that. Let's actually go back to heading mode here. Okay, localizer is alive again. Back in approach mode. Speed is below 175, so flaps going onto the approach setting, and the landing gear is coming down. Okay, we'll keep the speed up at about 150 or something the likes for the initial stages of the approach. And go around altitude 3,000 at first. No, 3,000 whichever's later, climbing to 5,000. Okay, so 5,000 is in. Okay. Runway heading is set, speed is looking good. Gear is already down 3 green, approach flaps are set. Let's go ahead and open the cowl flaps so that we are not going to overheat the engines in case of go around. Wait a moment, that was the closed position. This is open. Okay. Yes, it is. It has been a long day for me. Okay, cowl flaps fully open. Landing checklist. So, cabin differential pressure is, well, it's down at field elevation. Okay, boost pumps on, prop sync off, propellers set on high RPMs, that's basically where they are right now. Mixture for maximum power is set, flaps as needed, landing gear to come, landing lights are on, and we'll disconnect the autopilot when we feel like it and no earlier. That's the landing checklist complete. Okay, I tend to say that's everything done, so autopilot off, second press removes the flight director. So, landing flaps. Speed is coming back nicely. We'll keep it at 112 for the approach. And we'll put the power levers up to maximum just about prior to touchdown in order to have at least a little bit of additional noise abatement here. Okay then, I tend to say this is looking pretty good, and since we are nicely established, we can get rid of the approach chart as well. Pretty sensitive aileron. It is nicely controllable, but you do need to use very, very small inputs. Okay, keep it on the glide slope, please. Looking good. You can kind of see my yoke movements down there on the bottom of the screen. As you can see, I do need a little bit of aileron here every now and then, but apart from that, it is really flying pretty fine, without many inputs at all. Ooh, getting a little bit shaken over here. Okay, probably with maximum. Power idle. That was a little bit high of a flare. Okay, that's better. And we're down. Okay, going to take the exit to the left here at Delta. Already increasing power a little bit in order to keep my RPMs at 1000. And a little bit of brakes here. And we are nicely coming off at Delta. Or at least we should. Okay, that was interesting. I just went to idle power again, and when I did, I lost my nose wheel steering. Do we need RPMs in order to have hydraulics powered, in order to have nose wheel steering operating? Is that a theory? I'd actually have to read into that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that actually was the case. Okay, so the runway is vacated. We are just going to set the parking brake here Stop the timer, 57 minutes in the air. It surely felt quicker. It surely felt much, much quicker. Okay, and then we can do the after landing checklist. So, boost pumps, off, cowl flaps. Should be open already, but let's just for the sake of it press those buttons again. Okay, flaps. Going up. So, cabin differential is 0. Cabin dump. Weather radar. Can turn that off already. Transponder back on. Lights. Landing lights going off and strobe lights going off. Okay, ice protection can go all off. And the cabin temperature and mode, let's put that back to auto, and that's it. Alright, tell you what, with these temperatures we might just as well keep them off, and that should be fine. Okay, excellent. So, here we are at... What? What's that doing? I release the brake and my airplane starts turning. Well, let's add a little bit of power on the right side here. Sim update 15, my friends. Here's part of the reason why it is delayed. Okay, this is looking much better. That was interesting airplane movement here. But anyway, here we are in Friedrichshafen. So the scenery that you see over here is available for free through the city update number 6, Southern Germany. And the scenery is included in that. And let's be honest, for being available for free, that is pretty good. Especially seeing that the Aerosoft scenery that's available for Friedrichshafen is not all that good. Okay, we're just gonna park right in front of the hangar over here. Porta Air Service, that sounds like a place where we want to park, doesn't it? Okay, and here we are. Okay. So, park brake set, securing, shutdown and securing checklist, please. Park brake set, avionics switches are off. Boost pumps off, electrical switches. Are off. Hope I didn't miss anything. I do think they're off. Okay, so throttles closed. So propellers onto high RPM, mixture cut off. And here we are, my friends. Okay, so battery is going off and the generators are going off, and that's it. We made it. So we are right back on our first flight with the Duke. Now, I do hope that you have all enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to let me know in the comments below, and let me know if you want me to do more flights like this with antique navigation systems. Rest assured, we are going to do more flights with more modern systems in the very sooner future. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I do hope you enjoyed this little journey into the past, and with that, all I can say is thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like on YouTube and leave a comment to let me know what you think about it. And if you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you really love what I'm doing, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. And until then, all I can say is thank you very much, and I see you all again on the next one.